And look who's coming up.
To another edition, another episode, the midweek episode, the hump day episode of Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. Great to have you on board, live from the marsh just outside of Edmonton. My name is Dean Millard. Thank you so much for being a part of the show today. If you're new to the show, welcome. And chime in on the Twitch message chat board and let me know where it is that you're watching from. Also, just put up a poll question at the top of the chat board or the chat stream. Who will Aaron Judge break Roger Maris's home run record against? You can have a vote and have your say in the chat portion of Twitch. Man, we got a lot going on this show today. We're going to be joined by a guy that I consider one of the nicest hockey players I have ever met. Nicest athletes, nicest people I have ever met. Detroit Red Wing defenseman Mark Pysyk is going to be our guest. First ever draft pick, by the way, of the Edmonton Oil Kings. And signed this year. He's former captain of the Edmonton Oil Kings. Led them to a Memorial Cup, not a title, but to the tournament in 2012, his final year. Also, Tom Gazzola from TSN 1260. This is the guy who is now on the postgame show, which I used to do. So we'll get Tom's thoughts about the Oilers, and he is a well-rounded sports fellow. Also, some pretty good hair as well. If you're into good hair, I know there was a comment about my hair the other day. If you are into hair, you're gonna love Tom Gazzola. Larry says, great show lined up today, especially for hockey fans. Hey, Rod Peterson joining us again. Hello, what are we talking about today? Well, it's interesting, Rod. Your comment about Conor Mcdavid got a lot of people talking the other day. Our poll question yesterday was, should the Pats trade Conor Mcdavid or should they load up? And it was really, really close. I got the results here. The poll question finished, trade him for future assets, just 54.2%. So obviously a big topic of conversation, not just in Regina, in the hockey world, especially in Western Canada. So barely more than half of the people thought that they should trade Conor Mcdavid. And I am in agreement. They should have been, like I said yesterday, they should have been contending with Edmonton and Winnipeg last year. Unfortunately, they didn't. Also, we will get to our Dobber Hockey preview. And today, yes, it is the Edmonton Oilers. So good time to have Tom Gazzola on as well. Sound means we have some breaking news to tell you about. And this breaking news is huge for fantasy hockey fans, because the void left by RotoWorld/NBC Edge has been filled when it comes to NHL player news feed. Breaking news from Dobber Hockey. You can now get your fantasy hockey player news, frozenpool.dobbersports.com. There's the link. You can go to their Twitter handle, bookmark it, use it. Look at, here's some of the examples that you'll be able to get. Jake McCabe, Shane Pinto from various injuries. This is a huge concern for fantasy hockey players out there, that there was not going to be this source anymore. And who steps up? None other than Dobber Hockey, one of our partners. Absolutely love it. Check out the Dobber Hockey fantasy preview at dobberhockey.com. We might be able to give one of those away today, possibly as well. We'll see about that. But great news, Dobber Hockey filling a void. So fantasy hockey fans, rejoice. Stoonsy joining us, first-time chatter. How are we doing, Stoonsy? Good to have you aboard. Thanks very much for joining us here on the program. So a little bit of great breaking news when it comes to fantasy hockey, because certainly there was a void left by that no more daily. And, you know, when you're in a daily league, especially one as competitive as the ones that we run at UFFS, you need up to the second, up to the minute, right before lineups are announced, and that's what you'll get with Dobber Hockey. All right, a video preview to our question of the day.
That one's driven out into right center field. On the run, Verdugo. That ball is gone. Home run number 56, and the game is tied at 3. Fly ball deep left field. There it goes. See ya. Number 57. Aaron Judge 4 away from Roger Maris.
All right, Aaron Judge getting it done, carrying the Yankees to the playoffs. And I apologize, I had my mic muted. This is what happens when you are our producer, host, and director, is the director sometimes forgets. So Judge is now 4 away. The Yankees' next opponents: Red Sox tonight, 3 versus the Brewers Friday, 2 versus the Pirates Tuesday, 4 versus the Red Sox, then 3 versus the Blue Jays. How soon and against who does Aaron Judge break this Maris record? 4 away from tying, 5 away from breaking it, and you can vote on the poll question. 67% now saying the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's interesting. That means people think that it will take Aaron Judge at least 10 games. You don't think he's going to hit 5 home runs in the next 10 games? I think it's going to happen against the Pirates or the Brewers. Like, I honestly think he might wrap it up before the weekend. The guy is just, I don't know why teams are pitching. He got 1 intentional walk last night, but teams are pitching to him for whatever reason. So chime in on the Twitch channel. When and against who does Aaron Judge break Roger Maris's record? It's 61. And of course, nobody is talking about breaking the other records in the National League. And I heard somebody the other day, they were like, how come nobody's talking about it? Well, it's because he plays in the American League, and it's an American League record. And the bigger reason probably is that it's not tainted. So it'd be nice if somebody took a run at the other ones, the National League, the Sosa, McGuire, the Bonds. Not sure. Something will have to probably be juiced for that, either the balls or the players, unfortunately. So that's the question of the day. Would love to get your thoughts on that as we move along. All right, let's get to the top 3 now, and we're looking at fantasy football. Waiver wire pickups going into week number 2. Certainly a guy like Matt Ryan can help some people that had Dak. Only 34% rostered when it comes to quarterbacks. And he wasn't awesome for the Colts in their debut by any means. But Matt Ryan is like, you kind of know what you should be getting with Matt Ryan. If you've had any kind of experience in fantasy football. He wasn't awful, had some potential, 50 passes against Houston. So completed 32 of them. So you were going to definitely get some completions. Also had 352 yards, a touchdown, did have one interception, 16.3 points. He's going to improve on that. They are not going to shy away from the ball, even with Jonathan Taylor eating up 31 carries. They're going to be trailing in games. They're going to be throwing the ball. Yes, he's 37. He's not in sync yet. The interception that he threw was terrible. But there is a high ceiling here, especially if you lost Dak Prescott over the weekend. Michael Pittman, 121 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be the number one guy. The rest of them are all going to develop. So if the wideout chemistry is there, Matt Ryan is a nice waiver wire pickup, like I said, especially for those that lost Dak Prescott over the weekend. Jarvis Landry, receiver with the Saints, 50% of rosters. He had 7 catches on 9 targets for 40 yards in a win over the Falcons. And Jameis Winston loved him. Looked like he was going at him a lot. He's a veteran. And, obviously you're not grabbing a waiver wire other than the case where you have an injury replacement to a quarterback. But this is a guy who could be, a decent depth receiver on your franchise. And, watch that chemistry with Jameis Winston. Landry's produced. He was, when he was in Miami, he produced. He's never been, less than probably a wide receiver 3 and obviously in PPR formats. And he's, been fairly durable. So he's not a wide receiver 1. He's probably more like a wide receiver 3 that can maybe bump into a number 2 spot. But still a decent pickup depending on what happened. And then you look at a guy like Jeff Wilson Jr., just 12% of rosters, 22 yards in that loss to Chicago. That field was just in terrible condition. Elijah Mitchell was left early due to a knee injury, and that means Wilson Jr. saw an increase. The weather was terrible. Mitchell missing week number 2 puts Wilson into a running back 2 spot, and it's a home matchup against the although the Seahawks won in week 1. So there's 3 guys that looking at as far as waiver wire pickups in week number 1. Would love to hear your thoughts on who you're looking at. Who are you scouring the waivers for in week number 2 after some injuries that piled up, unfortunately, in the first week? And speaking of injuries, they're already starting. This coming out just moments ago before we went on the show. From Adam Schefter, Keenan Allen out for the Chargers against the Chiefs tomorrow night. It's a hamstring injury. 4 catches, 66 yards before leaving in week number 1. Mike Williams and Joshua Palmer become important starts tomorrow for fantasy and obviously for the Chargers. But if you have those guys in fantasy, bump them up in your value. And Jalen Gooten and DeAndre Carter are other guys that could see some more playing time. If you're one of those guys or fantasy girls that likes to load up on teams that you think are going to be able to load up, then certainly a few options for you there. But I'm sure, depending on the injury situation, you could have some better options. As for some predictions when it comes to quarterbacks in week number 2, and obviously this is, basing things off of what happened in the first week. But Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, not surprisingly, the lead quarterback when it comes to fantasy. They'll take on Tennessee at Buffalo. 27.2 fantasy points predicted by CBS. Patrick Mahomes of the Chiefs, 25.4 fantasy points versus the Chargers. Matt Stafford of the Rams was not great on Monday night. Should be much better on Sunday against Atlanta. 24.8 fantasy points predicted for Matt Stafford and the defending champions. And then you move down to Jalen Hurts of the Eagles, a guy who gets it done with his feet, like some of these other quarterbacks. 23.8 fantasy points. I'm really hoping Jalen Hurts can get it done because that's my quarterback. He's my fantasy quarterback. And Russell Wilson of the Broncos, who didn't get a chance to finish the game on Monday.
Child, please.
Unbelievable. Still coming in as a top 5 quarterback predicted by CBS this week, 23.4 fantasy points. What do you think of this list? Is there somebody else? Andy Mack joining us. Good-looking show today, he says. Andy Mack, head of football for UFAFL. What are your thoughts on this quarterback list? Predicted by CBS. I'm still in shock about what happened yesterday with Russell Wilson. Mind-blowing stuff. One more NFL note. Joe Flacco will be starting for the Jets, according to a report, for the versus the Browns this weekend. Sorry about your luck if Joe Flacco is your fantasy quarterback. Thanks for your donation to your fantasy team. Not terrible, 307 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but he was sacked 3 times because of a bad O-line. Mike White is the backup. He started 3 games last year, including an upset win over the Browns, so who knows? There's people going to be clamoring for Mike White over the weekend if, maybe on Saturday, or especially if Joe Flacco gets off to a rough start indeed. All right, we're going to switch from foosball, as they said in the Waterboy. We're going to talk a little puck when we come back. A little hockey. The guy who used to wear that Oil King jersey is going to join us when we return. NHL defenseman Mark Pysyk of the Detroit Red Wings is going to join us when we come back. Really excited to chat with Mark, the first ever draft pick of the Edmonton Oil Kings. That is coming up in just about 45 seconds to a minute. I'll get Mark set up and we will be right back. This is Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily on twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports, the UFSN YouTube channel, and the UFSN Podcast Network. Just past 4:20 in the East, 2:20 in the Mountain Time Zone, where I am located. Thanks very much for joining me on Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. My name is Dean Millard. We're here Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. Eastern, and lots of really great fantasy programming and just general sports talk programming on the way, especially we get into the hockey season. We have Ultimate Fantasy Football on Sunday mornings with Andy McNamara, 11 a.m. Eastern, to get you set and get your lineups ready. UFHL Now will return on Wednesdays, Inside UFLB likely on Friday this week, and some other great programming to come as well. But right now, I want to bring in our first guest of the day. He is the first ever draft pick of the Edmonton Oil Kings, and now a member of the Detroit Red Wings after a great NHL career that will continue. Mark Pysyk is my guest today. Mark, it's great to chat with you again. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
I am awesome. It's great to catch up with you once again. I know we met a long time ago in a cold barn in Ardrossan when we made you the Global Sports Athlete of the Week a long time ago, so it's been a while. But I guess maybe just give us an update on where you are. I know you signed in Detroit, but a bit of an injury. How's the recovery? And take us through what happened.
Yeah, it's going well. It was a couple days after signing, actually. Went to the gym, working out, and tore my Achilles tendon. It was the next morning, but I thought I just rolled it, and then a couple days later, surgery. But things are going well. I'm slowly getting out of that walking boot that I'm sure everybody knows and has a bad memory of. So I'm excited to get rid of that and throw that in the garbage. But it's going well down here in Detroit now. Get to know the guys, the staff. It's been a fun couple weeks so far down here.
And that's so frustrating for anybody, but especially somebody who's active or an athletic and a professional athlete, to just have to sit around and wait and let it heal. Is this, kind of the frustrating part of that, is the waiting game?
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting better. I can move around a little bit now, but yeah, in the gym I can't move. I got 2 small kids at home that I can't run around and chase. That's been pretty frustrating too, but it's something that happens. Obviously bad luck. I went from being on top of the world, signing with the Detroit Red Wings. We were super excited, pumped up, and then, a short couple days later, it's 4 to 6 months on the shelf. So it was a roller coaster for sure, but it's coming around.
Yeah, and especially when you're joining a new team, as you said, you're there in Detroit, getting used to it, and this is an exciting situation, I think, in Detroit. I think what Steve Yzerman has done, there's a really great mix of veterans, guys like yourself, and then some really up and coming young players. You have to be excited to be able to get in there and see what this team can actually do this year.
Absolutely. I think it's very exciting right now. There's a little bit of a buzz. I'm not sure what it was like the last couple of years here. I have absolutely no idea, but being around the room now, talking to the guys, there's a level of excitement, which I'm sure, every team is, but the guys that have been here before, they can feel that excitement and anticipation of the season, and hopefully they can get off to a good start. And then, whenever I'm back, hopefully I can help out with whatever I can.
Well, and I think, what you bring and what you've always brought to any team that I've watched is, a steady, calm, veteran presence. Even when you were a young player, you seemed like a veteran, kind of beyond your years. And so do you look at this now where you are in your career, going in there and being a kind of a bit of a mentor and, helping these young guys while also trying to help, obviously win a Stanley Cup at some point?
Yeah, we were, I was talking to a few of the other guys, like we're 30 years old now. The older guys in the locker room, which you think will never happen. But yeah, I think just the way you said, I've kind of been the same way my whole life, calm, try to stay calm. And last year in Buffalo, there was a lot of young guys that it was fun to work with and fun to be around. So, whatever that looks like, as a leadership, kind of doing whatever you do day in, day out, the young guys will see that. But there's a lot of young talent here that is well on their way to, being their own and doing their own thing.
Yeah, no kidding. It's going to be so fun to see guys like Sider and Raymond and everybody growing up with this team. The excitement is there. What about the excitement of playing for an Original Six team? I mean, Buffalo certainly is a strong hockey market, and obviously Dallas is growing. They have a Stanley Cup championship there. Florida is growing. The team is good, but now you really are in a hockey market. It's a true Original Six market, similar to what like a Canadian market might be a little bit. What's the excitement or the anticipation for that like?
Yeah, that was one of the things as well. Signing with the Red Wings is insanely cool. And then just from the first day you walk into that arena, you see jerseys on the wall. There's plaques of the guys that played there. The names, you go down the list of, the greats that have played here. And that's definitely something cool. It's going to be, whenever it comes, putting that jersey on, it's going to be really cool.
I want to go back to your time in Florida. This is a team and a franchise, obviously, that you saw up close and personal. That is really exciting. Some changes this year, but what was it like being on that team that was really on the way up, on the cusp of, and they're on the cusp of greatness? What do you expect from that Panthers team?
Yeah, good team, great team. Obviously, last year I think they're definitely going to take off or pick up from where they left off. And yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit for that team. They got a lot of good pieces. They obviously lost Huberto and Waiver, but I think there's a vision down there that the GM has. And when we were there, it was awesome. We made a lot of good lifelong friends there. I was there for 4 years. Those were a lot of fun for us. And it's exciting. I'm sure, like I said, there's anticipation, excitement going into the year, and I'm sure that's the same in 32 NHL locker rooms right now.
Yeah, and for Jonathan Huberto and Waiver, they're coming out west now, close to your backyard. So, what do you think for Huberto out west? Did you have a chance to chat with him at all about the trade and wish him any kind of luck like that?
A little bit. Just texted him, told him good luck. He's from Montreal, so he knows the cold, but he is, I'm sure, a lot more accustomed to the warmth. So it'll be funny seeing him drive his Ferrari in Calgary. So I'm not sure he's going to do, but no, they're going to enjoy it. I think playing in Canada, I think they'll both really do a good job, and I think the city and the fans there will absolutely love the both of them.
What about yourself? Thoughts about ever playing in Canadian cities? Have you come close to, signing with a Canadian market, and, you have some years left? Is it something that you ever thought? I don't know if, coming back home would be something, but just how close have you ever been to signing with the Canadian market?
Not that close, I don't think. I've been fortunate that there hasn't been too much waiting around on free agency days or anything like that. So we kind of jumped, and obviously Detroit, this summer it came up. So we jumped on that. That's an exciting one. And I'm here right now. And you know what, if I could stay here and finish my career here, I think that's the priority right now. Stay in one spot, and who knows what future holds though.
Yeah, well, especially, you have a young family, as I mentioned. I know family is so important. I had a chance to spend time with your family when I was at Global, and we did a bunch of stories at your house. And I wonder how becoming a father has sort of changed you. I hear this all the time. Guys in the NHL, when they have kids, they certainly start looking at their careers a little different than when it was just themselves. So how has maybe having a family changed you, as obviously as a person, but your approach to hockey and being an athlete?
It's for sure. I mean, all the stuff we packed over from Buffalo, just in the last 2 weeks, my wife has been just unpacking boxes from the minute she wakes up till the minute she goes to bed. So moving around every year is obviously not ideal, but we're still in the in the young phase where they're not at grade school yet. So we can move around a little bit, but that's quickly approaching. So who knows what that'll influence, with where we're playing. But yeah, I mean, you're playing for something else. Kids are the absolute best thing in the world. I certainly want to play long enough till they both understand kind of, how cool it is to be around the NHL and be playing hockey for a job. So that's definitely some motivation to, extend my career as long as possible.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Nick TVIP is joining us on Twitch, and he says, enjoyed watching Mr. Pysyk in Victoria against the Royals years ago. You guys had some crazy road trips with those Edmonton Oil Kings and some of those bus trips. Going across the ferry is one thing, but those bus trips into the BC territory were pretty wild, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. When you're going through the mountains or coming home and it's icy, and you hear the rumble strips and you wake up and you feel like you're sliding. The bus drivers do a fantastic job. That is not easy. And, thinking all the miles you put in on the bus, it's a lot, but that's some of the most fun you have.
Yeah, you really do bond on the bus. A little bit different in the NHL. You're on planes, but that's where teams come together. Road trips, spending time. You're not going to your own houses. You're all together. It really is whatever team you're on, the road trip really forms that bond, doesn't it? It's not just a cliche.
No, absolutely. With teams that are a little bit older, everybody has families they want to get home to, and you can't blame guys for that. But when you're on the road and everybody's going out for dinners, grabbing drinks, doing whatever. That's exactly right. That's where you form those bonds. And on sort of younger teams, it's a lot more exciting and fun. And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun this year.
Yeah, and interesting to see yourself go from one of those kind of younger guys to being the veterans, and for me to watch it happen, it's really cool to see you become that veteran presence. Another way teams bond is through fantasy sports, and I know you're not a huge fantasy sports guy, but it's pretty big in locker rooms. Who are some of the guys that take it pretty seriously that you've played with, and do you just stay away from it? You're not into it. You're too busy, or what's the deal with fantasy?
No, I'm in the league this year.
Oh, good.
The fantasy football leagues. We got 14 guys, which is uncharted territory for me. So I have a buddy back home that really helps me out. But Luongo was big into it. And now he's on his way to being a real GM, which is funny. But yeah, the guys are into it, super into it here. I got my butt kicked this week by Dylan Larkin, and I have the far superior team. But I had Akers, started me off, and then who else did I? It was a couple poor performances that I'm gonna have to sit those guys this week just to send a message, and then just can't lose. That's it. My goal is just to not finish last. We don't know what the punishment is yet here, but we're gonna find out. I'm gonna vote for the soft punishment because I know how bad I am.
I can only imagine how bad those punishments and how much fun. And, it's kind of another way to bond. But, you guys have the ability to be a little bit more creative than the average person when it comes to some of that stuff. So I imagine, whether that's picking up the tab at a dinner or having to wash a buddy's car, you guys can get really creative, I think, with those punishments.
Yeah, I think the last year in Florida when I did it, it was dinner. Maybe Buffalo last year too. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a good way. Guys are coming to the rink talking about it on the weekends, and you have everybody that study everything, and some guys that don't make one wire claim the whole year and they win. It's that's how I'd have to win. But,
that's right.
So I do have Justin Herbert as quarterback. So I'm good. We're in good hands.
You are in good hands, yeah. Is Dylan Larkin much of a chirper when it comes to beating? Like, did he chirp you after beating you, or is he just like a drop the football in the end zone and go back to the sideline guy?
It wasn't too bad. He kind of just dropped the football and walked away. But if I would have beat him, which I thought was going to happen, I would have been all over him. But
really? Like, I have a hard time seeing you chirping any. Like, even, you're such a nice guy, even trash talking on the ice, I think you might be polite.
Yeah. I try to be polite. Yeah, as respectful as you can trash talk. We'll put it at that.
That's right. This is a family show. I just want to go back to the Edmonton Oil Kings and your time there. The first ever draft pick, as I mentioned, you were able to wear the captaincy. To see the Oil Kings make another run last year, pretty cool, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I think they got hosed the year before with the COVID. I don't think they had the playoffs or something, so it was good to see them make it back, and not completely miss out on a good opportunity. But yeah, Sebastian Cossa, he was there. He's in Detroit right now, so I've seen him the last couple of weeks working out, and yeah, it's awesome to look back and see, and that's something that you can also have bragging rights over, guys.
Yeah, 100%. You know what I thought was really cool? At the World Juniors this year, which obviously was in Edmonton in the summer, Latvia was playing. I saw somebody walking around with a Christian Pelch jersey. And I know that is a name that is still near and dear to your heart, but I thought that was really cool that memory is still alive with that country playing. I thought that was a really neat, kind of tying it all together with the Oil King history.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was a tough day, but the Oil Kings family and everybody involved certainly will not forget.
For sure. Mark, this has been awesome. Please say hello to your family for Trish and I. My wife rode in with your parents to that Memorial Cup in Brandon. It was weird how it all came full circle. But say hi to your family from us. And certainly best of luck. I'd love to do this again sometime. Best of luck on healing. And certainly best of luck in Detroit with the Red Wings and the Original Six. Thanks very much for doing this today.
Thank you very much for having me, and hopefully next time I'll have some good fantasy football news.
Yeah, exactly. Get better. You can't. Management wins games, right? So you guys need to. You have to make some better decisions. Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Right. Bye. There's Mark Pysyk, Detroit Red Wings defenseman. Really, really great guy, and as I mentioned, comes from a great family, great people. So. The Oil Kings were really good, and he's going to really help that Detroit Red Wings blue line. A steady influence. And I, like I said, we had the Red Wings preview yesterday. I really like what the Steve Yzerman has done. So I like the pace at what they're going at. They're not trying to rush it or trying to do it too fast. Tony says, just had a chance to jump in. Exciting show today. Yeah, that was a fun interview with Mark Pysyk. How about the Sun scandal going on? Yeah, we touched on that yesterday, and here's what I'll say on that. I was watching it today, and I didn't think Adam Silver's news conference was very good. I thought he was, I don't know, he didn't seem like he was ready for some of the onslaught of the questions. But I will say this. From a fantasy perspective, like I said, I think things got better for the Clippers when they were forced to sell. And anytime you can get rid of a person in this situation, I think it makes the league better. I mean, the Suns players, the Mercury players going to work every day knowing that this is their boss. How does this last? I do not know how this will last. So that's what I'm looking at. From a Suns' point of view, is they're gonna have no choice in the end but to go the same route they did with the Clippers. Andy Mack, awesome guest. Hey Mark, yeah, it was Mark was really, really fun. And Trevor Zimmer from Five Eyes, first time in the chat. Nice interview. Thanks, Trev. Grizzlies, Andrea Karanduk, what a great guest, great interview, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Andrea. Great interview. Woohoo! And Tony says, great to have you, Mark. Trevor says, I remember taking my kids to the Oil King games during his tenure there. That was fun to watch. And now Wise Guys Prospect says, I regret trading Mark now that I see what a great guy he is. He is. Honestly, I interviewed him as like a 15-year-old kid in a cold rink, and he was really shy. And, he's not crazy outgoing, and he wasn't back then, but always very polite and comes from a great family. So awesome. I didn't. The one thing I didn't get to do, and I'm kicking myself now, is to show him the Duckman's domination. Maybe he would have requested a trade in UFHL if he knew he was going to come to Duckman's domination. Or maybe I'll have to text him that and be like, hey, maybe you should request a trade and join and I'll get you your own jersey. So, you can add to the collection. Sabres, Stars, Panthers, now Red Wings. Love it. Number 3, Mark Pysyk. You can follow him on Twitter at mpysyk03. Really fun conversation. If you missed it live, you can check it out on YouTube when we post it later on this evening. All right, we're going to duck out for a short break, but when we come back, we are going to play Fill in the Blank when it comes to fantasy. fantasy fill in the blank. In the meantime, enjoy the always popular mascots at halftime. Keeping the show going here on Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. Big thanks to Mark Pysyk, who joined us in the last segment. As mentioned, that'll be uploaded to YouTube later on today. I just want to check out the poll question results that we had. Who will Aaron Judge hit his home run? 67% still saying the Toronto Blue Jays. Wow, that's final poll now. I still think it's going to take less than 10 games for him to hit 5 home runs. That's just me. I think Aaron Judge is going to hit home runs much sooner than 10 games. All right, we're going to play Fill in the Blank. First of all, here is the first question, and it's a question every week. If you don't blank, are you really into fantasy or just having fun? Fill in the blank. If you don't blank, then are you really into fantasy or are you just having fun? If you don't, I'll fill in the blank. If you don't have trade negotiations during a Roger Waters concert, then are you really into fantasy or are you just having fun? I was checking out some trade offers I got last night during Roger's concert. I'm sure Roger wouldn't have appreciated that, but, not everybody appreciates all of Roger's opinions either. Concert was great, by the way. Light show was phenomenal. So, if you don't negotiate trades during a Roger Waters concert, then are you really into fantasy or are you just having fun? Love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the Twitch message chat board. Let me know. If you don't blank, then are you really into fantasy or are you just having some fun? It's a fun segment that we will have every Wednesday. We also have a fantasy football question that we're going with today. Blank is going to disappoint fantasy football owners this year. Blank is going to disappoint fantasy football owners this year. Fill in the blank, drop it in the Twitch message board, or hit me up on Twitter at Duck Millard or at UFS Network. You can also get us there. So, this goes against a lot of what people have thought for the last little while. And you know what? This is against my better judgment, but Tom Brady is going to disappoint fantasy owners this year. And it sucks because I have Mike Evans, and I need Mike Evans to be a TD cookie monster. I think Tom Brady's going to disappoint. Now, what is the level of disappointment? I guess that depends on your expectations for Tom Brady. I just think at some point Brady is going to come back to earth, and the 45th year of his life, where he's got a lot of bleep going on, seems likely. Giselle said that, she wasn't the happiest that he went back. She did an interview with Elle. Oh, this is interesting. Andrea Ellis says McDavid is going to disappoint fantasy owners this year. McDavid?
Child, please.
Conor McDavid? Disappointing?
Shame. Shame. Shame.
It's some bullcrap.
Listen, I think Conor McDavid is going to score 50 plus. The only disappointment will be McDavid not getting 50. Andrea?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
All right. I agree. Oh, you're laughing. Good. I love to be a source of entertainment. Larry says Mark Pysyk was a great guest, as anticipated. Love that he's benching Akers to send a message like a true fantasy GM. Yeah, no kidding. Tony says, who let her in here? Who let Andrea in this chat with McDavid disappointing? So anyway, blank is going to disappoint fantasy owners this year. And if you don't blank, then are you really into fantasy, or are you just having some fun? Let's get to some, actually, want to tell you quickly that if you are looking to make a bet on the game tomorrow night, and you want to bet responsible, I have a 125% bonus on sports. Use my link to get this special offer. Check out @DuckMillard on Twitter. Head to BetUS. Get on my Twitter account. Click the link in the bio. Get your 125% bonus. Bet responsibly and have some fun. Put some money down on tomorrow night's contest. Should note, as we told you off the top, Keenan Allen is out versus the Chiefs tomorrow. So if that's going to affect your betting strategy, please know Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer become important starts tomorrow. No Keenan Allen versus the Chiefs tomorrow for the Chargers. But you might want to throw some cash down, 125% bonus, when you use the link in my bio @DuckMillard. Okay, let's get to some Major League Baseball news. And obviously we told you about Aaron Judge, 56, 57. They play the Red Sox again tonight. I think he's going to get 58, maybe 59. But the Marlins have called up infield prospect Jordan Groshans. And this is really important for fantasy GMs that are in the playoffs or in the stretch or in the UFLB where you're heading into the playoffs and we have a brand new league. The Marlins aren't going to the playoffs, but the stretch drive, he might be able to help you. He was the 12th overall pick in 2018. He was a former Blue Jay, and the Marlins got him that year at the deadline. That sent Anthony Bass, Zach Pop, and Edward Durant to Toronto. 22 years old, primarily been a shortstop and a third baseman, and of Baseball America's top 100 prospects, he was 34th prior to last season. Struggled in Double-A, still was 60th in the top 100 list this year. Struggled in Triple-A prior to the trade, particularly in that power department, but slugging in .269 for Buffalo last year. His bat has perked up after the trade, no longer a Blue Jay. .301, .399, .416 slash in 31 games for Triple-A Jacksonville prior to the promotion. And he started last night and went 0 for 3. Still, something to watch for as you approach the final week or the playoffs. Brandon Lowe back on the IL. Unfortunately, the Rays second baseman is out for the third time this season. Just 4 games since the last time he went on the MASH unit. That time he lost 11 days with when he was hit with in the right tricep. This one is more worrisome because it's his back and it's his lower back. And he missed 2 months earlier because of his lower back. And obviously we've seen a big decline because of those injuries this year. He went 0 for 13 with a pair of walks. So even when he came back, he wasn't really healthy. This is interesting and not good for people that have Corbin Burns long-term dynasty leagues, especially those in luxury tax leagues, where you got to factor in potential salary, and if you don't know what that salary is going to be, it's really hard. But Corbin Burns, talking to Adam McAlvey on Sunday of MLB.com, on the 1-year anniversary of his combined no-hitter, he expressed a little bit shocked that the Brewers have not initiated extension talks with him. 27 years old. He's the ace, the defending National League Cy Young champion. He's in arbitration years, and he's supposed to be a free agent after 2024. The guy has been absolute money for the Brewers. 3 seasons, 2.60 ERA, 1.60 ERA plus, over 400 innings, almost 400 innings. He has struck out 536 batters. 34% of the guys he's faced. What are the Brewers thinking here? Like, seriously, what is Milwaukee doing?
Pay that man his money.
Rafael Ortega fractured his ring finger trying to bunt incorrectly, and he's on the IL. Tommy Canal, activated by the Dodgers, the right-hander, will be ready. And the Marlins played Avisail Garcia on the 10-day IL with a hamstring injury. All right, hockey news to tell you about. And it's not really huge news by any stretch of the imagination. But Tyler Mott has signed a 1-year deal with the Ottawa Senators, $1.35 million. He's a depth guy, bottom 6. But something the Sens could use this year is that they certainly transitioned into trying to be a contender. As we mentioned yesterday, the poll question for our Connor Bedard question ended up at 52.4% or 54.2% of trade him for futures. And again, I will reiterate, I agree with Rod Peterson. I agree with Larry Fisher. I agree with the voters of the poll. You are not going to get enough for Connor Bedard right now. You're not going to get enough, in my opinion, to build up. And if you do somehow get enough, you are going to be trading away 5 to 6 years of production. Whereas you can load up and in 2 years, not just have a superstar in Bedard, but a whole team that you can build around, that they didn't do this time. I don't know why. They should have been contending, knocking on the door last year, and contending this year. Anyway, that was the end of our poll question yesterday. By the way, Game 2 of the Ultimate Fantasy Women's Basketball Association is in the books, and the Bold City Blazers continue to dominate with all the main stars, as you would expect. Basketball, as Tony said yesterday, is all about the stars. Chelsea Gray, 39 points. Asia Wilson, 36.5 fantasy points. Kelsey Plum, 34 fantasy points. And Alyssa Thomas, 25.5. Oh, yeah, also Courtney Williams had 27 fantasy points. All of them chipping in to add up to an 181.5 fantasy point showing. Wild. Now, the Sparrows, who are contending as well, got some good outings from Jonquel Jones, 26.5, Brianna Jones, 28.5, but the difference is probably going to be far too big to make up in the few remaining games. This series could be over on Thursday. The Blazers lead 334.5 to 158.5 after Game 2. Game 3 on Thursday, Game 4 on Sunday, if necessary. All right, let's get now to our fantasy performers, our top shelf fantasy performers. And This one might as well be brought to you by the White Walkers, because the White Walkers, they had it going on last night. Like Stacy's mom. So the White Walkers, first of all, we'll get to the Rum Runners, because Joe Ryan did a number for the Twins last night and the Rum Runners, putting up 20 points thanks to a 7-inning outing on the bump. No earned runs, so he gets the quality start. That's 6 earned runs, or 6 innings and less than 3 earned runs. Picks up the win, 7 Ks, doesn't give up a hit, and walked 2 batters. So pretty impressive stuff. Would have been even better without the walks because the whip would have been 0. Aaron Judge, as we told you last night, for Music City Smash, and of course the Yankees, 19-pointer, 3 for 4, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, couple of runs scored. He got caught stealing, or else he would have had, it would have been about a 19.5-point night, or maybe it would have been a 20-point night. Yu Darvish of the Padres and the White Walkers, and Mark Mathias of the Rangers and the White Walkers, also rounding out our top 4 with 18 points each. Darvish on the hill for the Padres and the Walkers, 8 innings, no earned runs, so gets the quality start, 7-point bonus. The win bonus, 7 strikeouts, gave up 2 hits. As for the Rangers, Mathias, an 18-point night on a 3 for 5 night, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and 3 runs scored. So the White Walkers, pretty nice when you can walk out of a night with a 36-point evening. Also night when you can bet responsibly. You want to put something down on the game tomorrow night? You want to put some on the Major League Baseball tonight? You want to pick some Stanley Cup winners? BetUS has you covered. And I've got you with 125% bonus on any sport you want to bet on. Head to @DuckMillard on Twitter. Click the link in my bio, and you are on your way to getting a 125% bonus, getting the game where all the safe action is. All right, when we get back on the program, we are going to talk a little bit more hockey again. We had Mark Pysyk on the show earlier. We're also going to talk now with Tom Gazzola, who hosts the postgame show on TSN 1260. Of course, big year for the Edmonton Oilers coming up. A lot of anticipation. We're previewing the Edmonton Oilers in our Dobber Hockey preview a little bit later, so that's pretty fitting. And we'll talk to Tom about a few other things going on. I know he's a big baseball fan, and there's some pretty exciting stuff. As we just saw, Aaron Judge, 56, 57. When does he hit that number 62? That's the question of the day that we have going. Is it going to be against the Red Sox, the Pirates, the Blue Jays, or the Brewers? I think it's going to be the Brewers. I think Aaron Judge goes off this weekend and ends it. That's what I think. Maybe I'll save that for my bold prediction for tomorrow on the program. All right, when we come back, Tom Gazzola is going to join us. We're going to talk obviously about the Edmonton Oilers, but much more as well. This is Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily on twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. righty, just after 5 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. This is Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily on twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports. Please chime in on the Twitch message board. Phil Beavis says, Allen Robinson and work the waiver wire, make trades. If you don't, I don't know what Phil Beavis is referring to. Tony's asking if I got the Chiefs. I think I will take the Chiefs. I might have to start CEH. Edwards-Helaire picked up some touchdowns. I'm so confused with running backs. It's the weirdest thing. Oh, first timer from the chat, Garrett Perkins. Stacy's mom, love it. Nick TVIP says, I hear she's got it going on. Yeah, she does. Everybody knows that Stacy's mom has it going on. Like, who doesn't know that, really? All right, you know who's got it going on is a good friend of mine, and you know, very well known in the media circles for lovely hair. So I hope he didn't wear a hat. Tom Gazzola is joining us. You know, it's much better when I can control things and turn your mic on. Tommy, how are you?
Dino, I did my hair for you today, okay? I'm doing good.
I love it. Like, do you ever get sick of people commenting on your hair?
No. You know why? I'm just glad, first of all, that I still have it. If you ever see my dad or meet him, you see he's got nothing left, and I've already surpassed him by a decade of having hair. And I'm just like, I appreciate it. It's like, well, I still have it, and I'm just thankful for it. So bring it on. Like, if you think it's greasy, I don't care. If you think it sucks, I don't care. I just love the fact that I have it. So no problems whatsoever, Dino.
Well, and you know, I hear you on the Gazzola Chronicles, and you're working with two guys who barely have any hair. So you got to make those guys. Well, Gregor does it. He shaves it. Strutty probably should. At some point, he's going to have to go that route. So those guys must be envious every time you're in there.
Yeah, well, I take a ribbing from those guys. You know them very well, and I just chalk it up to being like the younger brother of those two, and I take my lickings and beatings when I need to, and I, as being an oldest brother, Dino, I'm like, yeah, now I'm on the other end of it, so I kind of get it. Long time coming, and finally I get a dose of reality from those two and a taste of my own medicine. That's how I look at it. Maybe there's more vitriol there. I'm going to assume it's more of a positive thing, but I'll take the bashing whenever it comes my way from those two clowns.
Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit. Obviously, this is a fantasy show. What do you do for fantasy? All sports, just football, baseball? What's your fantasy level at?
Yeah, well, okay, I'm only in one league right now. Unfortunately, it's F1, and I haven't set my team. Yeah. Joaquin Gage set it up. And I haven't set my team since, I think, the third race week. So I'm clearly getting my ass kicked. And I've done football fantasy. I actually came in third in a baseball fantasy one year at my old station in Lloydminster. And then I get roped into hockey fantasy here and there. And usually I just say no because, Dino, I'm so bad at setting rosters, lineups. I forget about it. I generally think I have enough time to get in my roster, depending on the sport, and something happens where I miss out and I don't do it, or my phone glitches. I'm the worst fantasy sports player out there, and I just warn people whenever they invite me for a league, and I tell them, I'm like, listen, you're just wasting your time. Please go and get somebody that will actually commit the time, effort, and resources into making it more competitive, because I'm the worst, and I fully admit it, and I've embraced it, and I just let them know, like, I'm a terrible fantasy sports player.
Interesting. I love that you're in an F1 league. We've got some car racing stuff going on. You guys might be interested as well, so we'll have to chat about that because it's pretty cool. Nick TVIP says, jealous bald man here. So he's obviously jealous of the head of hair that you have as among other people. Okay, so obviously you're doing the post-game show, a job that I did, and I know some nights that job can be a lot of fun. Other nights in February when it's minus 30 and the Oilers get pumped and the power play goes 0 for 5 and people are telling you the worst things ever because you don't agree with them. But it must be better. Like, it has to be better than it, even though they were getting better when I left, they still weren't there. Like, last season had to have been so fun.
Dino, it was. And like you said, it full well. And the listeners at 1260 and the range of emotions that they go through on a night-to-night basis. Those guys on a first-name basis, too. And if it's a good win, they're happy about it. Some of them, if it's a so-so win, if you will, they're still not that content. And then if it's a loss, the sky's falling. Yeah, last year ended up being fun. And you'll remember 16-17 when they went on that run to Game 7 of the second round and lost to Anaheim. It was a step up from that. But, Dino, like December, I mean, you could even go back to like late November, December, January was as bad as it's ever been. And you've been in this market for a long time. You've covered the local teams in this market for a long time. When the fans are pissed off with their teams. And it went from just the best start ever and everything's going to be okay. This team has turned a corner finally to, oh my God, this team is going to not make the playoffs and Draisaitl and McDavid are going to want trades. And then the coaching change happened and, we had the issues with the media versus the players. I think that was a byproduct of COVID and the setup with the podiums and all that. I think, players got fed up with it. Media got fed up with it. Coaches got fed up with it. Obviously, the fans were fed up with it. Not having that interaction in the room really hurt. So, like, all of it fed into this small window, concentrated amount of time, like a good 6 weeks last year, where it went from great to awful and then went really good at the end to a really fun playoff run. So, last year was something unlike I've ever experienced covering the Edmonton Oilers. And Dean, like, I'm going into year 15 covering this team. I can't believe it either. But the 21-22 Oilers season was just this ridiculously wild roller coaster ride on all fronts. And hopefully there's more consistency in the Oilers game this year where, they're going to be okay. And then by the time they get to the playoffs, we're talking about a team doing some damage again. But, man, it was nuts last year, like just on all fronts.
Yeah, Tom, if you don't know, worked for the Oilers TV, so was right in, the inside workings of the locker room at one point. So you would know both sides of that. And, yeah, when you don't get that one-on-one connection, things get lost in the way or the Zoom call or whatever. It's just not the same. So this is an Oilers team now. Obviously, everybody thinks, McDavid is I've seen McDavid not go one in fantasy leagues because goals are worth more. Here's the thing. I think McDavid gets 50 this year, and I think the difference between his 50 and whatever Matthews or whoever else gets is going to be made up by the fact that he might get like 130 points. Does Conor McDavid, for whatever reason, just seem like he's ready to, as good as he's been, just absolutely explode this year for some reason?
He's in the best part of his career. He's in the prime. He's just entering it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he took another step and elevated his game. I know people talked about his defensive game in recent years, and now that's not an issue all of a sudden. The way he played in the postseason and how he performed and the points that he put up, even though he was blanketed night to night. And then the fact that he's got Leon Draisaitl there with him, and now he's got a legit scorer and Evander Kane, and we'll see what happens on the right side. But Zach Hyman has been a huge boost to the forward unit. So McDavid going into his prime, having been as good as he has been in the 7-8 years that he's been in the National Hockey League, he might get 50, Dino, just because he wants to, and just to shut up people that are naysayers towards his goal-scoring ability. He is that good. He is magic on the ice, and I know I'm pumping his tires because we see him every day here, but he is literally that good. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got to 130. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 50 goals. So if Matthews, let's say, gets to 60, fantastic. But Connor McDavid could make up the difference with the assist totals. And this is a team that's going to pop off offensively. If in a month we're talking about an Oilers team that the power play isn't clicking and McDavid and Draisaitl don't seem to have it going, I don't think that'll last for very long. I think that'll be an anomaly. These guys know they can score. They have so many weapons. the big question will be, is the goaltending better? On paper, seems like it. And then on defense, can they keep pucks out of their own zone, break up cycles, and get the pucks up to McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, and the list goes on. Those will be the big question marks. But when it comes to McDavid himself, to me, it's crazy that some people wouldn't take Conor McDavid, because right now he's in that time in his career where he's essentially a lock for first or second in league scoring.
Yeah, as long as he's healthy, you're right. Nobody is going to be able to, I think, unless he misses a whole bunch of games. That's exactly it. So there's the Stars. The blue line is really interesting. And, this is a team that's obviously going to have to, make some maneuvers. But we saw Evan Bouchard and that Bouch bomb that he has. And obviously, he's going to be a key moving forward. What about a guy like Phillip Roberg, who is kind of still dipping his feet in? I think he's going to start the year on the roster, but I guess it all depends on training camp. What do you see from Phillip Roberg this year?
Smooth, sweet. And Dean, today they're talking about how he put on 10 to 15 pounds. That's great. Like, when old man strength kicks in for him, I know he's young. He's 20, 21 years old. But when he finally, gets that man strength to kick in, that'll go a long way. And it looks like he's put on a little bit of meat and muscle. And if he's playing in a way where he's not intimidated and he can build consistency and find ways to eliminate mistakes that rookies tend to make, hearing footsteps, inadvertently dumping pucks out and getting rid of them because they're worried that there's pressure coming. Like, if he can do that quickly and consistently, he should be okay. But the fact of the matter is, yes, he's probably going to be on the roster. I know Ken Holland's talked about that. And they brought in Ryan Murray to be kind of an insurance policy for Phillip Roberg, essentially, which is great to have a Stanley Cup champion and a veteran like that on the roster that doesn't necessarily need to play every single night. But for Broberg, if he can focus on the defensive side of his game like he talked about this morning, and we see some growth there, and he's not hurting the team in his own zone, and he's not getting out-muscled a ton, that would be a perfect start to his NHL career. I know he's dabbled in the league a little bit, but he hasn't really been a bona fide NHLer. And then the offense naturally will kick in because he just has those instincts. He's good at headmanning the puck. He's good at finding open guys in the offensive zone, and from time to time he gets one through and scores. And he's got a great shot too. So if Broberg, like we saw and you alluded to Evan Bouchard, like there were some nights where Bouchard, he looked like a rookie. And even though, they call him dad and he looks like an old guy, he had moments where it was like, boy, Bouchard had a rough night. Sometimes Duncan Keith also had a rough night alongside him. So if Broberg can find ways to minimize those, I think he'll be okay. But the fact of the matter is that those mistakes tend to happen to rookie NHL players, especially on the back end. But they have Ryan Murray there as an insurance policy. I do think he'll be an everyday guy. I think he's got the inside track to that spot on the team. He's going to have to play so bad in training camp and preseason games, Dino, to lose that spot is how it's lining up right now.
And he's different than Bouchard, right? Like Bouchard, we talk about that big bomb from the point. Broberg is a bit more of a distributor, and we'll probably get a little bit more points that way when it comes. Mm-hmm. But it's good to have those different two types of young defensemen that are coming up, because you've got Bouchard and you've got Barry right now, and you've got Nurse making $9 million. So you got a lot of defensemen, and I know Nurse is going to probably shift over to a lot more of a shutdown and a PK role, but that's a lot of money tied up in some blue liners that do some similar things.
Yeah, and I suppose the difference between Bouchard and Broberg, or Broberg, not so much compared to Barry, but Broberg transports the puck really well. He's got good speed and nice step, and he gets going. And if he sees a lane, he'll take it, and he'll expose an opening or a gap. Whereas Bouchard, he kind of waits it out, looks for that pass, and isn't the type of guy that's just jumping at certain opportunities. And that's kind of where Phillip Roberg has that little wrinkle to his game that maybe other guys don't have. And Barry, I know there was a lot of talk this offseason about, hey, do you move him out? Is $4.5 million? They need him. They lost Duncan Keith. Yes, they brought back Brett Kulak. That's great. And if they need to change the right side of the blue line at some point, then yeah, Barry will likely be the guy that's in the spotlight and would be an asset that they could move out. But that comes in time. But as of right now, yeah, it's more of a veteran blue line, which is good. And the young guys have contributed, and we'll see if Bouchard continues to ascend, and I think he should. I mean, Dino, we saw him in the playoffs, and he looked pretty good. So if Broberg, again, can minimize the mistakes, then the back end should kind of take care of some of the concern. But if they do get exposed, if Kulak looks like a third pairing guy rather than a second pairing guy, if Nurse has bonehead plays and continues to do that, this could be a nightmare. But right now we're at a point where it's like leaning good, but there's still the potential for some rough nights.
Yeah, it's you look at this team, and going back to the years that you've covered it and I've covered it, is there was not enough depth. Well, they look like they have that up front, and their blue line. Well, they've got some guys coming on, and then you mentioned the goaltending. Well, they've shored that up, and I think there's an opportunity, obviously, for Jack Campbell, but I think there's an opportunity for Stuart Skinner here, and Stuart Skinner has had some really red-hot moments in his career. So yep. I think the goaltending situation is actually the best that I've seen it as far as potential and future in a lot of years.
Dean, I mean, you're a goalie. The best thing for a goalie is A, to be feeling confident, and then B, to have the guys in front of him confident in knowing that he's going to make the save. Like, that confidence goes so far with teams. And as much as guys talked about, Mike Smith and the battler that he was and how he was so great in the room, he let in the first shot of the game or second, third, fourth, fifth shot of the game so many times last year. And then they would throw Mikko Koskinen in there and he would do the exact same thing. Like, how can you feel confident in your goalies when you're down 1-0 3 minutes in, 15 times a season? If that can be eliminated, then they should be okay. And you're right about Stuart Skinner. Like, that game against Winnipeg last year, he was outstanding. That was probably his best game as an NHL goaltender. And if he can push and make 20 to 25 starts and spell off Jack Campbell, then that's great, and have a winning record. And if Jack Campbell can continue to do what he did in Toronto, I know the last half of last year wasn't particularly great, but if he could be solid for him, that's all they're asking for. And as is tradition in our market, a lot of people always point to the contract and the money and all that's involved. But 5x5 for Jack Campbell, that was just to get in the game, to get him into the city. And who knows, in 2 or 3 years, maybe we're talking about Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell going 41-41, or maybe it's 50-30, and they're looking at moving on from Jack Campbell. But that's in a few years. But this, like you said, is a good proposition for the Oilers with two goalies that are hungry and look like they should be able to take strides with their careers.
It's so, and I know the Oilers wouldn't have ever appreciated it, but like, the ideal contest on the pregame show would be, is the first goal of the game going to go in? And if it doesn't, like, the pot doubles, and the pot, like, yeah. you wouldn't, nobody would make a whole lot of money on that, because it happened every 3 or 4 games. I mean, and now, like, the Oilers would not love that, but it really was. It's like a drinking game, right?
Well, Dino, the best one was in the 56-game season. Mikko Koskinen plays 12.5 minutes, allows 4 goals on 4 shots, and then can't even break his stick the first whack. It took 2 whacks to break it over the post. I was like, this is it. This is what you're working with. And somehow this team managed to go, deep in the playoffs last year and finish second in its division 3 years in a row with those guys. But yeah, you're right. Like, if we put it out there, question of the day, does the first shot go in? A lot of times that pot's not building up, because they were scoring on those first shots. And some of them were grade A quality chances. Some of them were just terrible, terrible goals. Yeah. But it was so consistent. It was sad.
Baseball quickly. I know you're a ball fan, so what are you more excited about right now? Judge trying to track down, and he's going to, the Roger Maris record to 57 he has, and the record is 61, or Albert Pujols trying to get 700 in a turn back the clock second half for the machine?
I'm liking Pujols right now, because we've watched him for 20 years. And this is a guy that came out of the steroid era, and he's about to reach a mark that 3-4 other guys have done in the history of Major League Baseball. So to me, that's the coolest. And the way he's doing it, I know the universal DH probably helped him out too and prolonged his career, but the fact that he's back in St. Louis, they're having such a good year. It's autumn and he's crushing dingers. It seems like every weekend we're talking about him inching closer. So I was happy when he passed A-Rod because I'm a guy that's like, all right, I know A-Rod was a great player, but he was a jerk and he was a guy that was hard to like. And even when A-Rod did that video for Pujols like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I was like, shut up, A-Rod. Like, let Pujols do his thing. Like, this is a guy where we could actually celebrate him. Now, for Aaron Judge, like, I'm fascinated by how we're talking about him getting to Roger Maris's record. And you know, we talk about it on the AL side. And I hope he does it too because he's having a monster season. The guy's a monster human being. But I also find it interesting, and I'm sure you do too, or I'd like to know what you think, but we're not talking about Barry Bonds and we're not talking about Sosa and Maguire so much. It's almost like because of their implications with steroids, they're being like brushed aside. And I don't know if that's appropriate or I'm just appreciating it because it seems like now where guys are getting busted for PEDs, like hello, Fernando Tatis Jr., like that was so dumb. These guys who, you know, if they're not doing these PEDs and they're clean and they're accomplishing these feats, I can truly applaud that and appreciate it. And I love that congruently we have these two guys in both leagues doing something really, really cool.
Well, I think the one reason that it's the Bonds, Sosa, Maguire is not being talked about as much is because this is such a sacred American League record, right? Like this is 61, and none of those guys, Sosa, Bonds, and Maguire, played in the American League. So none of that although there were guys that they were tainted playing in the American League, none of them set that record. So this record has stood for so long, even during the steroid. Like, how did this record not get broken in the American League during the steroid era? So I wonder if that's why. But I think it might too, is that baseball is trying to celebrate something, and it's hard to celebrate something when every time you mention it, somebody brings up PEDs. That's not a celebration.
Yeah. No. And I mean, the guys that are getting busted now, you would just hope that we're past it. And and that's why I brought up Tatis Jr. because I'm like, here's an exciting guy that's going to be, you know, helping San Diego become a contender, a team we never really talk about. And once every 10 years, maybe we're talking about them going on a postseason run. And all of a sudden he sewers it. So I think, you know, having listened to, read, watch documentaries and movies on the steroid era, it's like, okay, finally, like it's that breath of fresh air where it's like they're legitimately doing these things, Pujols and Judge, and you could be like, I appreciate that. But yeah, I understand the AL side of it and Roger Maris and the Yankee tradition and all that. But I was like, wow, we're really not talking about Sosa and Maguire and definitely not talking about Bonds, and I'm okay with that. And I understand the separation, but yeah, I mean, those guys were juiced. Literally, they were juiced, and you know they're their own thing. But if they're complaining about not getting the love nowadays,
that's their fault.
Yeah, you guys, they can take a hike for all I care.
Yeah, and it's going to be weird. Like nobody, unless the ball is juiced or something, I don't know how maybe that's why nobody's talking about it, because nobody thinks Judge is going to get close to the 70s, right? Like maybe they think he'll top out at 61 or 62. So here's two different comments from two different Andreas in our chat. One says, best hair in YEG media for sure. So that's good. And another Andrea, who has Dylan Holloway in our fantasy league, says, hey, Tom, does Holloway secure a spot this season? Larry Fisher and I talked about him the other day. Somebody mentioned him potentially for the Calder. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. I just don't know if there's going to be enough ice time, especially on the power play, for this guy this year. But I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you to Andrea 1 about the hair comment. Much appreciated. Andrea 2, Holloway is a guy that's going to have, I think, a great camp to make the team. Now, he might be on the opening day roster, and we know that Ken Holland's going to have to play cap gymnastics to make sure the Oilers are cap compliant and make sure those rookie bonuses don't kick in if they were to call up those guys on their ELCs. So for Holloway, it was interesting just talking to some people around the organization. Like, they're not as set on him being a everyday player or on the team right out of the gates. It could happen. I think he would have to have a great training camp, put up points in the preseason, look good defensively, or at least sound enough in his own zone where they can trust him. And you're right. Like, this roster, Dino, is pretty loaded up front. Not to say that there wouldn't potentially be an opportunity for Dylan Holloway at some point, but I don't think that there's as much of an onus on him to make the team out of camp and to stick around and play minimal minutes when, on the flip side, he could be down in Bakersfield maybe for half a year, maybe for 25 games, and just really popping off down there. And then when injuries, which are inevitable, do occur up in Edmonton, he gets a look and rightfully is thrust into a situation where he's not playing, 3.5 minutes in Game 4 of the Western Conference Final. He did draw a penalty. I acknowledge that. But where he actually gets to kind of stretch his legs out and give her out there as opposed to kind of sitting on the bench right in the pine. But I don't think there's as much of a push for him to be on the team. That's going to be up to him. He's going to get a lot of looks in the preseason, but anything could happen. I don't see him necessarily being a lock for the team right out of the gates.
Beauty stuff, my man. Thanks a lot for joining me. Enjoy that post-game, pre-game show. It's going to be so much fun because they're going to be fun to watch, even on the bad nights. And I don't think there's going to be as many bad nights as they're certainly used to. Thanks for doing this, though, Tom, and I'd like to do it again sometime. Anytime,
Dino. And sometimes those bad nights are just as fun as the good nights, too.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes, I'll be honest, I did just a little bit of needling every once in a while with Oiler fans because you got to kind of stick it in every once in a while to rile it up, right?
Always. That's the fun part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. We'll chat soon.
Thank you, Dino.
Take care. There's Tom Gazzola. TSN 1260 pre- and post-game show, NHL network correspondent as well, and that is... great hair. Andrea, too, says, thanks, Tom, for that answer. So, good stuff. Oh, Larry Fisher says, are you saying the guys weren't confident in Koskinen's glove? Yeah, I don't think anybody was confident in that glove. And Larry says, like the Condor signing, Colton Point today for even more depth in goal. Pickard, Fanti, Point, Rodriguez, it's looking pretty solid between the pipes, glass half full. And Evan Rodriguez was considered the best goaltender in that draft class at one point. So they do have some goaltending depth. They do have some blue line depth. They do have some forward depth. Can they put it all together? That's the big question. Can this team, and listen, last year, as Tom said, they had a horrible time around Christmas, that December. Still bounced back and went deep. Expectations are massive for this team. It is no longer let's hope, let's make the playoffs. Now it's we need to at least get to the conference final. We need to get to the Stanley Cup final. We need to win the Stanley Cup final. It's not just about the playoffs.
Playoffs?
It's winning the Stanley Cup with this team and this roster. I think it's Stanley, honestly, I think this year going into the season, for Edmonton Oilers fans, if they don't reach a Stanley Cup final, they're going to be disappointed. Chime in on the Twitch chat if you will, or hit me up at Duck Millard on Twitter. Speaking of the Oilers, that's what we're going to get to next. Even more Oilers talk. Flames fans, you're so lucky today. We're going to preview the Edmonton Oilers in our Dobber Hockey team preview. That is coming up next. But right now, I want to introduce you to the Ultimate Crypto Driving Championship. We are back with our Dobber Hockey Oilers preview right after this. Get yourselves ready to race at great heights to become the global sim racing champion. Create your crypto livery. Enter with the best designs. Enter to win prizes. Outrace your competition. Winning is all that matters. Watch the other racers in your rear view mirror. Gain massive exposure battling against the biggest names in crypto with a season-long race for the championship. Bring glory to your token. Drive like a champion, win it all. Be first or last. If you're not rubbing, you're not racing. Get behind the wheel and drive for your project. Okay, let's keep it going. Excuse me, pardon me. This is Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. My name is Dean Millard, and you are tuned in to twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports. And we're going to dive into the Edmonton Oilers a little bit more now with the Oilers team preview. And this is presented by Dobber Hockey. By the way, if you missed the breaking news from earlier, Dobber Hockey has you covered when it comes to news of the day. Injuries. Roto World NBC Edge is gone. ending the NHL player news feed, and that is filled. Fantasy hockey player news, frozenpool.dobbersports.com. This is going to be legendary. You're going to get your updates from Dobber Hockey. We got something cool on the way from Dobber Hockey as well that we'll hopefully be able to let you know about either later this week or next week. But that's some really cool news and excellent information from Dobber Hockey. All right, let's get to the Oilers now. And, you know, it's obviously fairly easy to look at. And, oh, by the way, this Oiler preview is also brought to you by the Grizzlies because they are heavy on the Oilers. But, you know, like McDavid and Draisaitl are the obvious number 1, 2. I think those are the number 1, 2 guys in the NHL. If I'm in a brand new dynasty league, those are the guys I'm ranking 1, 2. I know Austin Matthews might score 60. If goals are the same, it's a no-brainer. If goals are more, I still think the separation between points between Matthews and McDavid and even Draisaitl, who could get 50, will be enough. I think Austin Matthews is awesome. I hope he scores 70. I just don't think that the point totals are going to match. So, McDavid of the Yetis, obviously. And then Draisaitl and Bouchard, both of the Grizzlies in UFHL. McDavid, I think, gets 50. Draisaitl could get 50. And like I said, I hope Matthews gets 70. For my breakout player, I'm going with Phillip Roberg. He plays for Duckman's Domination. That's my franchise. We've been counting on Broberg. I really liked the word I loved that Tom Gazzola used, smooth. Because that's what I think of when I picture Broberg, when I watch Broberg, is his skating ability. And Tom nailed it as a puck transporter. He carries the puck up. Doesn't have the big shot, but still can get it through. But he might be the guy setting up the big shot if the Oilers ever went with 2 defensemen on the power play again. And the thing about the Oilers power play, if you're not a first power play guy, you hardly get any time. So those top 3 guys there, those are all 3 power play guys. And then you probably throw Nugent Hopkins in there. And whether it's, take your pick of Yamamoto, Kane, Hyman, who knows? Puljujärvi might get some power play time, but he was mostly on the second line. That first unit stays out there for $1.45. So you need those, one of those 3 guys on there is going to get you a massive amount of power play points if those are bonuses in your league. And Stuart Skinner is my sleeper, and I mentioned it to Tom. He could get hot. And I think there's going to be a point where Stuart Skinner, the Oilers are going to have to rely on him because Jack Campbell's either going to struggle or get injured. And I think there's an opportunity for Stuart Skinner to grab the net and keep it. We'll see. Maybe he does just enough to come in next year on an even playing field. I think there's going to be a point where Skinner is really, really important for the Edmonton Oilers. Let's take a look at things from a Dobber Hockey perspective. This is their lineup. I should say their projected lineup for the Edmonton Oilers. And there's so much potential with movement. So it's really even... I even have a hard time saying top 6 because so many of these guys can interchange. I mean, you could have a line of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Kane. You could have a lineup of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Nugent Hopkins. You can switch them all around. I think even a guy like Jesse Puljujärvi, if he's still on the team, can move into that second line spot if somebody's not going. That bottom 6 is interesting because a lot of these guys have the ability to score as well. And you don't need your bottom 6 to score a lot, but you just need to chip in. Derek Ryan has some offensive potential. Tyler Benson has been an offensive player. Dylan Holloway. So there is some potential in the bottom six for some offense. Obviously, Puljujarvi. If you can get an average of 15 goals, like looks like they're all projecting here, that's pretty good for your second line. Or your third line, rather. And then the blue line is starting to become a strength. Nurse and Bouchard, and Nurse plays that shutdown role and kills a lot of penalties. Broberg and Barry, really nice second offensive pairing. And then Kulak and Ceci, I don't mind that blue line. I don't like the price tag for Darnell Nurse, but he's effective if he's not being overloaded. And a few years back, when Oscar Klefbom was still playing and he got hurt, Nurse was given so much ice time, he just got so tired. Now, I think he's and he's just a young player. I think he's a lot used to it now, and not having him playing power play is going to be, and was so much better and will be so much better. It's a pretty good fantasy team for sure. Larry says, I'm warming up to Holloway on the opening roster. He could work well with McLeod and Yamamoto, Puljujarvi on a kid line. I could see Woodcroft wanting to deploy a soft minutes kid line as a third wave of offense. I don't like that at all, actually. I am in the opposite of that. I want Dylan Holloway playing first line minutes, second line minutes, instead of third soft line minutes. Fogle, Ryan Janmark as a fourth line is nice depth up front if they want to structure it that way. Definitely sounds like Virtanen will be in Oilers camp next week, so he'd be competition for Fogle and Holloway. Yeah, we'll see. And like I said, I would love to see Dylan Holloway play first line minutes in Bakersfield just to start the season. So that's your Oilers team preview, the lineups from Dobber Hockey, and there is the preview from my perspective. And it's pretty easy when you're looking at the top three guys on this Oilers roster. Okay, when we come back from a really quick trip out, I'm going to get a drink of water. We're going to get into what we should be watching tonight and a few other fun things as well. We're back in 30 seconds. Segment of the Wednesday episode, a Wednesday edition of Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. Thanks so much for sticking around for the whole show. We had some really fun conversations and a lot of great people stopping by today. A lot of new people, so that's fun. To our Twitch universe, twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports is where you find us live Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern till 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also find the replays on YouTube. Just search Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. And in audio format, wherever you find your podcast, also search Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. Larry chiming in about the Oilers saying they could play McLeod on the wing and Nugent Hopkins as number 3 center if they want to go Crosby, Melk, and Stahl down the middle. Lots of options. Intrigued to see how Woodcroft rolls them out when camp starts. I used to think the 3 centers was great. I wouldn't do it anymore. I would load up my top 2 and then have a tweener line, and then for me, if I was there, like a total checking line is your 4th line. Load up the top 2. That's what I would do. I don't think Nugent Hopkins is used properly as a number 3 center. I think he definitely fills a number 3 center role, but I think he has more skill. He's got to be better 5-on-5, which I think he was last year, but he's got to have better. I think he should have better line mates. He's a skilled player that can check, that I think should be in your second line. Just my opinion when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, and certainly fantasy owners want Ryan Nugent Hopkins on the second line as well. Let's quickly revisit our question of the day. Who will Aaron Judge break the record against? Aaron Judge, after last night, has 57 home runs.
That one's driven out into right center field. On the run, Verdugo. That ball is gone. Home run number 56. And the game is tied at 3. Harris. Number 57. High fly ball, deep left field. There it goes. See ya. Number 57. Aaron Judge 4 away from Roger Maris.
So the question is, when and against who will Judge break the record? Red Sox tonight, then 3 versus the Brewers starting Friday, 2 versus the Pirates on Tuesday, 4 versus the Red Sox starting Wednesday, 3 versus the Blue Jays the following Monday. I think it actually happens. He'll hit another one tonight, so he'll be at 58, and then he hits 4 on the weekend. I think by Monday, we're talking about a new American League single-season home run champion for the first time since Roger Maris hit 61. Question of our top 3 waiver wire pickups. I went with Matt Ryan at quarterback, 34% rostered. And for guys that lost Dak, this could help. Jarvis Landry, 50% rostered. The receiver has been a decent wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and Jeff Wilson Jr., 12% rostered. He becomes running back number 2 for the 49ers and most likely is available in your league. Take a look at quarterbacks for this week. Josh Allen of the Bills, according to CBS, is looking to be the leader when it comes to projections, 27.2 fantasy points. Mahomes at 25.4. Matt Stafford, 24.8. Jalen Hurts, 1 point behind at 23.8. And Russell Wilson, 23.4 fantasy points this week, which starts tomorrow night, of course, with the Chargers and the Chiefs. And bad news for the Chargers. Keenan Allen ruled out for Thursday night's game due to a hamstring injury. So make sure you're adjusting your fantasy lineups to make sure Keenan Allen is not in your lineup this season. And a reminder, if you want to bet responsibly, I have a 125% bonus to use on sports betting at BetUS. Use my link to get this special offer. The link is in my bio at Duck Millard on Twitter. So head to at Duck Millard, click on the link, and get your 125% bonus. Fill in the blank today. If you don't blank, then are you really into fantasy or just having fun? If you don't have trade negotiations during Roger Waters, are you really into fantasy? And our other one, blank, is going to disappoint fantasy owners this year. I said Tom Brady. Tom Brady is going to disappoint fantasy owners this year. Just my opinion. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I just think at some point there's going to be a step back for Tom Brady. All right. What are we watching tonight? Well, like in a couple of hours, or actually not even a couple hours, in an hour, we get to see if Aaron Judge can hit 58. A couple of ball games already. Giants over the Braves 4-1 in the 7th. Mariners leading the Padres 3-0. That's not good news for Blue Jays fans. They're trying to catch the Mariners in that wild card spot. Toronto will take on Tampa Bay tonight. Ross Stripling, who was really good last outing, will take the bump. And Nestor Cortez, another good reason to watch the Yankees. And Aaron Judge taking on the Boston Red Sox. That starts at 7:10 Eastern time. That is certainly what I'll be checking out tonight for sure. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. Big, massive thanks to Mark Pysyk of the Detroit Red Wings. Awesome conversation. Lost to Dylan Larkin this past week in fantasy. Was not chirped too bad, so that's good. And Tom Gazzola, best hair in media, from the TSN 1260 Don Wheaton on White post-game show and pre-game show on TSN 1260. Fun conversations with both of those guys, and I hope to do it again soon. We're going to do this show again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on twitch.tv/Ultimate Fantasy Sports. Thank you so much for tuning in to Ultimate Fantasy Sports Daily. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Thanks now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.